In 1950, after the Turkish government announces that it will be sending soldiers to help South Korea in the Korean War, a soldier named Suleiman heads to the military base with his friends. After making a quick stop so that one of his friends, Ali, can get a picture of his favorite singer, Marilyn Monroe, the men ride their bicycles past two ladies, Layla and Nuran, who look happy to see them. While Nuran is in a relationship with Suleiman, Layla is also dating one of Suleiman's friends named Silal. After the men ride their bicycles away, Layla sounds worried as she tells Nuran about the latest news on the Korean War. As she says she's worried that Silal or Suleiman might get picked, Nuran tells her not to think about it. Later in the day, Suleiman is called to his commander's office, where he's told that he's going to be one of the soldiers heading to South Korea. Suleiman is shocked to hear this, especially because he's only a mechanic in the army, but his commander tells him that his services will be needed as technical staff. That night, while he's hanging out with his friends, they all sound surprised to hear that Suleiman is leaving to join the war. As they then talk about how dangerous it could get, Ali mentions that he has also been picked, and he'll be there to protect his friend. After he leaves the meeting with his friends, Suleiman heads over to meet Nuran to inform her that he's leaving for Korea in a few days. Nuran is not happy to hear this, and she even wants him to stay back, just like Sila, who's not going to Korea. However, Suleiman says his country needs him, and he has to go. Nuran continues to convince him to stay, saying that her uncle will only see her as a burden if she doesn't find a way to leave his house soon enough. Suleiman assures Nuran that he'll keep in touch with her by sending letters and pictures whenever he's free. Nuran is relieved to hear this, and she then prays for him, after which she says he can go. Meanwhile, Suleiman's father, Hussein, gets a letter from his son. He gives it to his neighbor's daughter, Nimet, to help him read it. And as soon as she reads that Suleiman is going to Korea for the war, Hussein is left shocked. Nimet also looks nervous, and she runs into her house to say a prayer for Suleiman, who she has liked since they were kids. Days later, Suleiman leaves for Korea, and he writes his first letter to Nuran to inform her of how things are going and how he feels excited about helping the South Koreans win the war. While on the ship headed towards South Korea, a lieutenant named Mesut briefs all the soldiers on what's going on in Korea and how they'll be helping the South Korean soldiers. After a while, the Turkish soldiers arrive in South Korea and are immediately given an update on the war and where they'll be heading to set up a camp with some other American soldiers. When they get to the camp, though, they realize that the place looks dull, and as Mesut asks around, he is told by the Americans that the battle is over. Even though he looks happy with the update, Ali doesn't look pleased because he really wanted to fight in the war. Mesut doesn't get this, and as he scolds Ali, a missile drops in the camp. Everywhere goes into chaos as more bombs start dropping in the camp. Mesut immediately leads Ali and Suleiman to find their commander, who then says they need to go to the headquarters of the American Special Forces to get help. Meanwhile, Nuran reads in the newspaper that the war in Korea ended before the Turkish soldiers could intervene. She looks happy and tells Layla that she hopes Suleiman asks for her hand in marriage as soon as he returns. Layla also mentions that Silal is preparing to propose to her, and this makes the ladies get excited about the prospect of a double engagement. Back in Korea, Suleiman drives Mesut and the others to meet the Americans. After driving for a while without turning on the headlamps, the commander tells Suleiman to put it on. However, immediately the lights come on. They see some enemy soldiers ahead, after which they all jump out of the truck before a missile blows it up. Ali then goes on a shooting spree and ends up killing all the enemy soldiers in their way. As they continue walking through the forest, they suddenly hear a strange sound and start to get worried that they might be in the middle of another ambush. However, as they split, Suleiman finds a small girl sitting in the midst of many dead bodies. Even though the girl says nothing and looks scared after watching her parents get killed, Suleiman takes her back to meet the others, who are surprised when they see the little girl. Together, they head over to the headquarters of the American Special Forces. While Mesut and the commander go inside to report what happened at the camp, Ali and Suleiman stay outside with another colleague named Muharrem. After a while, the three men start contemplating what they would name the girl they found, since she's not saying anything yet. Just then, Suleiman decides to name her Ayla, and the other men sound impressed with it. Meanwhile, Mesut and the commander meet with a general named Coulter, who says the Chinese forces were responsible for the attack on the camp. After briefing them on what to do next, Mesut and the commander leave with the other soldiers. On their way, the commander's truck stops, and Suleiman is told to come and check it. As he's about to get out of his truck, Ayla doesn't let him leave until the commander comes over and tells him to hand her to another soldier. After a while, Suleiman gets the commander's truck to work again, and and he then tells the soldier watching Ayla to give her back. As the soldier picks her up, he gets shot randomly, and it turns out they've been surrounded by enemy forces who start killing some of the Turkish soldiers. Before they all get killed, Suleiman plays a huge role in winning the small battle, but he eventually gets stabbed. As he then looks around and sees that Ayla is fine, he passes out. Meanwhile, news reaches Turkey that the war in Korea is far from over and that some of the soldiers are dead. Hussein and his family are unhappy to hear this, and they look worried, hoping that nothing has happened to Suleiman. Nuran also hears of what happened in Korea and looks devastated as she starts fearing the worst. Elsewhere, Suleiman wakes up on a hospital bed with Ayla by his side. Shortly after, his colleagues come in to praise him for how well he fought on the battlefield. They also inform him that Ayla hasn't left his bedside since they brought him in, and that even when the Koreans wanted to take her away, she didn't let them. After he recovers, Suleiman is summoned by the commander of the Turkish soldiers. When they meet, Suleiman brings Ayla along, and the commander tells him that he'll have to leave the girl behind at some point. He also says that the Koreans are not too pleased with leaving Ayla in their care. He then assigns a new sergeant named Sadik to help Suleiman in the technical unit and to also watch Ayla. Before he leaves, the commander praises Suleiman for his work on the battlefield and says the Koreans are preparing a medal ceremony to honor him and the other soldiers. Suleiman heads out and hands Ayla to Sadiq, while he walks away to prepare for the medal ceremony. Despite this, she still follows him, but he eventually gets her to stay with Sadiq. However, when Sadiq is not watching her, she runs away and hides in Suleiman's truck. After a while, Suleiman and Ali head out to the medal ceremony, and after taking pictures, the ceremony begins. While the men are being awarded their medals, everyone is shocked to see Ayla when she runs to the venue. Even though Suleiman gestures to her to leave, she just smiles at him. After he's given his medal, the Korean commander hands Ayla to him and says he can continue taking care of her until they find her family. Suleiman then takes several pictures with Ayla and sends them to his family along with his usual letter. His family looks happy to see that he's fine. However, Nuran doesn't look so happy when she sees what Suleiman sent to her. She tells Layla that she's scared something might happen to him, especially since he's now taking care of Ayla, who might be a burden to him. Meanwhile, Suleiman and Ayla continue to get really close, and he even starts teaching her the Turkish language. During one of their lessons, she calls him her father, after which she hugs him. Days later, while the soldiers are on the field, Ayla speaks for the first time and joins them for their parade, leaving everyone quite emotional. The next day, Ali suggests taking Ayla to Tokyo for a festival, and Suleiman agrees to it, with Mesut also coming with them. Ayla enjoys herself in Tokyo, and later that night, while she's sleeping, Mesut asks Suleiman if he has thought of what would happen to her when it's time for them to return to Turkey. This gets Suleiman worried, because he knows he might eventually have to leave Ayla behind. After they return from their trip, Sadek tells Suleiman that he found some people in the nearby village who know Ayla's parents. Suleiman is shocked to hear this, but he says he'll go alone and see them first. Before handing over Ayla, Muharrem hears their conversation and also sees Suleiman eventually head out after showing Ayla where he's going. Things soon take a wrong turn, and it turns out to be a trap by Chinese soldiers to capture Suleiman and torture him, so he can tell them how many men are in his unit. Meanwhile, Muharrem finds Ali and tells him about what he heard Suleiman and Sadiq talking about. Ali gets angry and confronts Sadiq for not stopping Suleiman from going to the nearby village. After Ayla then tells him where Suleiman went, Ali forces Sadiq to come with him to find his friend. Before the Chinese soldiers beat up Suleiman, Ali shows up with Sadiq. After a while, they're able to threaten the soldiers and get Suleiman freed, after which they head back to the base. Just before they arrive, the commander asks for them, but Muharrem lies that Ali is taking care of Suleiman, who is having stomach problems. Despite this, the commander still insists that he wants to see them, and luckily, they arrive on time and come out of the toilet to make Muharrem's lie believable. The commander then tells them that he only wanted to inform them that Marilyn Monroe is coming to the camp to sing for the soldiers to boost their morale. However, he adds that he has a mission for Ali, which will make him miss it. Even though Ali doesn't seem to be too bothered that night, he gets really angry in the morning and starts complaining about not being able to get an autograph from his favorite singer. Before things get out of hand, Mesut comes over to calm him down. He also tells Ali that he has a plan for Suleiman to help him get the autograph by using Ayla. With this, Ali leaves for his mission, while Suleiman gives a picture to Ayla so she can hand it over to Marilyn Monroe to get it signed. The plan works out well, and Marilyn Monroe happily signs the autograph. However, Ali gets distracted while on his mission and gets killed before Suleiman can bring the signed picture to him. Suleiman is left devastated by the news of Ali's death, but Ayla is there for him. Days later, Masoud announces to Suleiman and some other soldiers that they'll now be allowed to go home because new soldiers are coming to replace them. Despite seeing other soldiers, including Muharrem, heading home, Suleiman decides to stay back because of Ayla. He writes a letter home to inform them of his decision, and his father gets angry when he realizes that his son is not coming back, even after being discharged. Nuran also looks frustrated at his decision, but she sends a request to a radio station for them to play a song dedicated to him. As he hears the song, Suleiman looks happy as he believes it's a message from Nuran to tell him that she'll still be waiting for him. Meanwhile, Nimet hears the radio and breaks down in tears as she realizes that Suleiman is in love with someone else. However, her mother consoles her and tells her not to lose hope. Days later, Suleiman is summoned by his commander, who asks him why he's yet to leave Korea. He says it's going to be tough on Ayla, but the commander tells him not to worry about her because there's an orphanage she can be taken to. The next day, an official from the orphanage arrives, and Suleiman also meets her. Before letting Ayla join the orphanage, he says he wants to see the place first. After the commander agrees to this, Suleiman then takes Ayla there with Masoud. Ayla is initially uninterested in doing anything at the school because she thinks Suleiman will leave her there, but he convinces her that he's not doing that. This makes Ayla happy, and as she participates in class, Suleiman can't believe he'll have to abandon her. Masoud also can't hold back tears, and shortly after, Suleiman heads out. However, Ayla runs after him and asks why he's leaving without her. Just then, Suleiman says he's never letting her stay alone. He packs his bags and tells her not to make any sound when he hides her inside his suitcase. She agrees to remain silent, and he heads towards the ship meant to take the soldiers home. He is initially stopped by a soldier who is shocked to see him carrying a big suitcase, but when Suleiman says it only contains things he got from his trip to Tokyo, he is allowed to leave. Suleiman looks happy as he heads for the ship, but just then, Masoud shows up and asks him for Ayla. Suleiman remains silent, and some soldiers then tell him to open his suitcase. As it is opened, everyone sees Ayla inside, and this leaves Masoud disappointed. However, Masoud pleads on Suleiman's behalf, and after he's forgiven, he is told to leave Korea immediately. He still insists that he wants to stay, but Masoud tells him he can return to Korea after the war to pick up the girl. Even though he doesn't believe this will work, Masoud convinces Suleiman until he agrees to leave. Just before he leaves, he meets Ayla and tells her he'll return for her. She looks sad to hear that he's leaving, but Suleiman promises to be back, after which they hug each other. As Suleiman then walks away, Ayla starts to cry, and he also struggles to hold back tears. Days later, Suleiman returns to Turkey and is welcomed by Celal and Layla, who are now married. As he asks about Nuran, he learns that she has gotten engaged to someone else, and this leaves him disappointed. He goes to confront her, and she says she couldn't wait for him because her uncle kept pressuring her to get married. She also blames him for staying longer in Korea with Ayla. Suleiman eventually leaves her house and calls his parents to help him find a wife because he's ready to get married. A while later, he gets married to Nimet, and they move into a new house together. Despite this, Suleiman is still very interested in finding Ayla, but his efforts are unsuccessful, and this leaves him unhappy. After days of watching her husband act cold towards her, Nimet offers to help him in any way she can. She also says she knows he's worried about Ayla, and that she's ready to make it her goal to find the little girl and bring her to Turkey. Suleiman is happy to have a supportive wife, and even though he wasn't too sure about marrying her, he looks happy with her efforts to find Ayla. Despite this, they're unable to get anything done because the war is still going on in Korea. Many years later, when Suleiman is very old, he still remains worried about finding Ayla, as he hopes to one day fulfill his promise to her. Even though his daughter doesn't get his obsession with Ayla, who she believes might even be dead, Nimet tells her to stop saying things that could hurt her father. Days later, Nimet brings Suleiman some good news that a journalist named Sarah is interested in helping him find Ayla. He looks happy with this, and eventually meets up with Sarah and her colleague. Suleiman narrates how he has been trying to find Ayla for years without any luck. After giving Sarah all the details she needs, she says she'll be working on it. A while later, Sarah and her colleague eventually find Ayla, and they realize that she actually changed her name. When they meet Ayla and show her pictures of her and Suleiman when she was younger, she gets emotional and asks if he's still alive. Days later, Sarah takes Ayla to Turkey to meet Suleiman, who is waiting at a park with Nimet. After a while, Ayla arrives and looks happy to see him, who who she calls her father. They both look very happy to see each other, and Suleiman feels relieved to finally fulfill his promise to her.